Hello everybody, a bit of a different video today, talking about Ethereum Treasury companies and which one I like potentially best. So as you know, of course, I am not putting these at all in the same section as Bitcoin treasury companies. To me, Ethereum or Solana treasury companies, they're a bet of buying the fuel of these more advanced blockchain. You're betting on the oil, you're betting on the fuel that needs to be expanded to run your programs on these blockchains, right? That's the way I look at this. So kind of think of these companies as an oil company would try to acquire more oil fields. I don't look at Ethereum as money. In fact, I don't think Ethereum is money, and so hopefully I don't get the ire of Ethereum lovers on this. But I do make a strong distinction between Bitcoin and Ethereum and Bitcoin and Solana. These, by definition, are much more speculative, and I am fully aware of that. Nonetheless, I want to analyze them because there is some similarity with Bitcoin treasury companies in the way they dilute and in their goal to make an asset accessible to TradFi, to bring an asset from the DeFi world and make it accessible in the TradFi world. That's the appeal of these instruments. Let's go. Sharplink Gaming and Gamesquare. These are the two stocks I want to cover. Tom Lee's BNMR, I don't really cover it because I think it's all over the place. I can't really figure out where the Ethereum is, the new investments, what price did they pay. I think it's all over the place right now. I think it's too early to analyze Tom Lee's company. So I'm focusing on SBET and Game because it's a little more straightforward to me. So SBET, of course, one of the co-founders of Ethereum, is the leader at Sharplink Gaming, also known as SBET, and they have the largest Ethereum treasury out there. I'll get to that in a second. As far as market cap, they are also the largest Ethereum company at a 3.5 billion in market cap. So that's Goliath right there. And then you have the newcomer, like really a newcomer. What is it? 2 weeks old. It's Gamesquare Holdings, ticker symbol GAME, not to be confused with GME, and they have a 72 million market cap, so a much smaller player than the Goliath for Sharplink Gaming, the largest publicly traded owner of Ethereum. But the tale of two stories continues, and this is surprising, and this is reverse. Sharplink doesn't really have any meaningful underlying business compared to their market cap. Their revenue, in fact, is 3.4 million. But Gamesquare, they have an actual business under the hood, and I was very pleasantly surprised to see that their revenue is $99 million. So even though they're not optimized for positive cash flow just yet, and that revenue is very costly. The cost of goods sold is very high for their gaming events. They do gaming events, from what I understand. But nonetheless, it's been ramping, and they have a revenue of. So this is a company trading at less than 1 time sales. So that's pretty interesting right there. And also, it has not known the spike in stock price just yet that Sharplink has had. Sharplink, you're at a 10x, right, from the bottom from before announcing. Gamesquare right now, after the drop of yesterday, they're at 80%, plus 80% compared to what they were trading at before the Ethereum strategy. So again, I find that very interesting, but of course, different risk profile, different further ahead, different level of ahead in the strategy here. So let's talk about SBET. Of course, what is the strategy? The strategy is to acquire more Ethereum by taking advantage of your price to NAV, your price to NAV. That's the Saylor playbook, except you're not doing it for Bitcoin this time. You're doing it for another digital asset, in this case, ETH. And so how do we calculate their price to NAV? Well, we have to figure out how many ETHs do they have. They finished a issuance of new shares, and they have 257 million of cash that they yet have to invest in ETH, and they already have 280,000 ETH. So 280,000 ETH plus $257 million worth of ETH that's gonna have to be bought. That brings us to a total of 353,000 ETH roughly is what they should have roughly just about now. And the market cap of the company is 3.5 billion, and therefore the price to NAV is a 2.83. They are printing $1 for $2.85. They are losing $1 to dilution for each $1.85 that they bring in. The ATM is very accretive. They have a 1 billion ATM in place, and my guess is they are slowly running out of money on that ATM because they've just updated it, and that's the big news from yesterday. They've just updated their ATM to $5 billion. So this is a company that's going to grow the ETH bag very hard. They're going to grow it a lot because 5 billion, that's a 5xing of a former ATM. We're now looking at a company that has an ATM very, very similar to DeFi Development Corp and their own ATM, which is also 5 billion, which they call a ELOC, E-L-O-C. But it's very similar. They have much of a fundraising ahead of them. They are well positioned for if we get a run up in crypto, if we get a big hitting up of the crypto marketplace, they're going to be able to issue shares into strength and acquire the Ethereum and, act as their own mini black hole for TradFi capital to flow into the blockchain, and in this case, the Ethereum blockchain. Then, talking about SBET again, they spent quite a bit of time trying to convince us that ETH is the better opportunity. And again, if you choose anything other than Bitcoin, it's gonna be a question mark. And we know Bitcoin won the store value game. Like this is established. This is one. We don't know who's gonna win the blockchain game, but I think they make a reasonable case in general. Sharplink gaming on this, and their case is that the stable coins, they're the biggest on Ethereum. They're gonna remain the biggest on Ethereum. Their lead compared to other blockchains is just too big for other blockchains to catch up. So that's, for example, what they show, total value secured, and they're showing that $219 billion of stable coins are essentially secured on the Ethereum blockchain against 20 billion on Solana. So there's a 10x order of magnitude. There's 10x more stable coins on Ethereum than there are on Solana. And so they're making the case that Metcalfe's law is in place. The network theory is in place, and it's just going to remain this way, and that they are going to remain the leading blockchain for stable coins. And, because a lot of the old institutions, they're familiar with Ethereum. It's been around a long time. Solana is newer, and so they are less likely to adopt it. At least that's the case that they make. I was surprised that Robinhood chose Ethereum to launch its tokenized stocks in Europe, but they did. It seems like a lot of the institutions like Ethereum. Ethereum is the oldest, and so Solana maybe is going to have a little harder time at being the blockchain of the future. I don't know. I have no idea. I know I'm betting on both, right? It's like, as you know, I own DFDV. It's a small position, but I took a bet on DFDV, DeFi Development Corp. That bet is on Solana, right? So it's a different story. Who's going to win? No idea. But that's something for you to figure out. Before you even touch these companies, you have to figure out, do you like Bitcoin? Do you like Ethereum? Do you like Solana? And so they show you again how most issuers of stablecoin, they do it on the Ethereum blockchain. And this is also part of the growth, and this is still out, right? The jury's still out on this. Is the tokenized assets, the global tokenized assets? Which blockchain are they going to move to? And that's part of the race. And they're saying, they're going to move to Ethereum. Well, are they going to move to Ethereum? I don't know. It seems to me like Solana has a shot at being the main blockchain for tokenized assets. When you look at the data, when you look at the number, but again, I don't follow these too closely, unfortunately, and you have entire YouTubers who are entirely dedicated on following crypto. To me, it's easy to have a big allocation to Bitcoin because I don't have to ask myself who's going to win and who's not going to win. And of course, whether you are talking about Ethereum or Solana, they're proof-of-stake network. And proof-of-stake networks mean that you are going to have staking rewards, interest rate. There's an interest rate native to the asset. This is something Bitcoin doesn't have. And so Ethereum, unfortunately, the yield is about 3%, from what I understand. The staking yield, if you do it right, should be about 3%, maybe 4%. And so this is a company that should expect to earn a major yield on their Ethereum bag. But whether it is SBET or Game, what they're trying to do is they're trying to move to DeFi and to earn a greater yield on DeFi platforms. And so there's all sorts of risk profiles. Whenever you try to earn a yield on DeFi with say Ethereum or whatever pair of token, you have bigger risk, right? You have liquidity risk, you have risk of being quote unquote rug pull, you have risks of impermanent loss. There's many risks in earning a yield in DeFi and earning a yield on the blockchain. And I don't know how good the team is on SBET. So I'm mostly interested in the treasury part. I don't know how good their team is. As far as the team goes, just a second, talking about Game. I listened, Game 2 days ago, they had a conference call where they interviewed the person who's going to manage their DeFi strategy. And they're talking about how they're using AI to maximize the yield on their yet to be staked or to be quote unquote DeFi'd ETH, and the guy was explaining how much better they are at earning yield than any other company doing it, and that they have a skill and they have this AI that allows them to earn yield on various DeFi platform. But it's a really active thing, and you gotta track it, and you gotta figure out where to stake your ETH, where to do your ETH. To show you an example of and again, this is never going to be the topic of this channel, but to show you what they can do, for example, is you can take your ETH, you can turn your ETH into a synthetic ETH, and then you create a pair, and that pair is the ETH to synthetic ETH pair, and then you have traders, and traders will pay the fees, and then you earn the fees, you share some of the fees with the pool, and then you get a reward. It's all about listing pairs, and this is something I've said before. You could do this for Bitcoin, right? A Bitcoin treasury company could wrap the Bitcoin, and then they could match the Bitcoin to, I don't know, a stable coin, and then they could list it on DeFi, and they could earn yield on that, on a DeFi platform. But that, that's a risky business. You take a Bitcoin or an Ethereum, and then you wrap it, and then you wrap it into a liquidity provider token, and then you wait to be paid on that liquidity provider token. This is something, you really have to be deep into the weeds of decentralized finance, and this is not the topic of this channel. But I hope that they don't lose the ETH. That's the biggest thing, right? Don't get rug pulled. But if you can earn an outsized yield and you feel like it, that's fine. I don't think that's a big risk right now. I think right now the bigger story is in them creating an Ethereum yield, through their treasury operations. If anything, I would love to see them just sit on ETH, just stake it native, and focus on earning the yield through your treasury operations, through your TradFi methods first, and price appreciation on top of that. And then maybe 10 years down the road, when this is all sophisticated and secure and all of the big banks are doing it, maybe try to venture out in the DeFi risk curve a little bit, but not too much. And I want to talk about the newcomer. And you're going to be disappointed because, I titled the video "Who Wins," but it's tough for me to tell you who wins on this one. I like both of them. I think as far as outsized return, Game probably has a bigger potential because it is the smaller company, and so it can grow much faster than the bigger company. But it's riskier, right? And they have 100% maintenance ratio, and it's a tiny float. They have a majority owner who could sell the shares at Game. It's like there's a whole over level of risk, right? So I think the risk adjusted return between SBET and Game are probably going to be fairly similar, if you ask me. But let's talk about Game. So Game, they announced their treasury, their Ethereum Treasury company not long ago, 1 week ago, 2 weeks ago. It's brand new. That company's brand new. When they did that, it spiked. They started with 5 million of Ethereum, purchasing 5 million of Ethereum. Now they've raised 70 million, so they're done with that. And they completed that, and their proceeds total are over 90 million. And so the big question is, how much Ethereum do they have? Well, I don't know that just yet. I think we're going to get an update. I don't know that just yet. And then what's the actual market cap? Well, I don't think that's updated just yet. And so there's a lot of uncertainty surrounding this stock. If you use TradingView tells you the market cap is 70 million. If you use Google tells you it's 73 million. And then there is the 70 million offering, or should I use the 90 million? I don't know. So the big question is, I'm going to assume the two following things, and feel free to tweak that depending on your preference. I'm going to assume their market cap right now is 140 million with all of the dilution that they've had. And I'm going to assume that they bought $75 million worth of ETH. So that would be 21,500 ETH. And so assuming these two numbers, 21,500 ETH and 140 million market cap, your price to NAV would be a 1.86, so not quite as good as SBET, but still pretty good. And keep in mind, the price of the stock I'm using right now at 161 is after a 30% drop. Yesterday, when we were at that peak, the price to NAV was probably closer to a 2.5, maybe even a 3. So these companies are very early, whether it's SBET or whether it's Game, they are so early, it's tough to really know the exact price to NAV. I'm fairly confident it's high. It's higher than MicroStrategy's, for example, to Bitcoin. So I'm fairly confident it's a little higher, but I don't know the level. And I think these Ethereum Treasury companies, they, as we study them, as we look at them right now, we are before the initial pump, is the way I look at it. We are before they get noticed by the market. If that's going to be a thing at one point, they will be noticed by the market, and they may have aura similar to what we see to a smarter web company or a Meta Planet. So it's definitely a risky game, and it's a risky play. And but if you like risk, it's two interesting stocks if you like risk. So anyways, this was not investment advice, not financial advice. This is only entertainment. Hoping you were entertained. Please like, please subscribe, follow me on Patreon, follow me on X. Thank you for watching, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.